Hello, this is Don with MecSoft Support. Today we're going to be discussing Visual3DPRINT 2017. In this video, we're going to be doing Quick Start Guide number 3 in a series, and this one is going to be about a cavity block. Okay, before we get started, let's go over the steps we're going to take. First, we're going to launch Visual3DPRINT and we'll open our part file. Then we'll perform a diagnose on the mesh and see if we got any problems. Then we're going to use Stitch and Close to combine and fix the mesh. Then we'll use Reduce to simplify the mesh. After that, we're going to create a box to use for our cavity block, and then we're going to subtract the mesh from the box to create our cavity. Okay, so let's get started. When you run VisualCAD and after you install Visual3DPRINT, if you go to the Home tab, you should see Visual3DPRINT the menu appear in the plugins pane. If you don't see this menu, move over to the left and pick the application manager and make sure the box is checked next to Visual3DPRINT so that the plugin loads whenever VisualCAD loads. Okay, let's cancel that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Visual3DPRINT main menu. Now we have different options up here, but primarily this menu is used to open and close the Visual3DPRINT browser and to access additional resources. So first let's look at the welcome dialog. From here you can access different resources about this plugin. Now you can get this same 3 chapters, 3 video quick start guides in a document format by going to the welcome dialog and selecting quick start guide, and that'll display the quick start PDF document. In this video we're doing chapter 3 on cavity blocks, so let's close that. Also, from the Visual3DPRINT main menu you have the browser option, and that displays the Visual3DPRINT browser on the left. Now this browser is where you're going to primarily do your work for working with your parts, getting them ready to 3D print, and we'll talk a little bit about this browser. You have a tab menu bar at the top. In the middle you have a data tree where all of your objects you create are listed here. You have a toolbar in the middle, and you have the information window at the bottom. Now this information window also doubles for the command dialog area when you select the command. Now the tab menu area at the top, you have a create tab for creating different types of meshes. You have a model tab where you can work with mesh models. You have an inspect and modify tab where you can evaluate your meshes. You can smooth them out, remesh them, reduce the mesh, and just work with your meshes. And we have a repair tab where you can diagnose problems and have various commands to fix them. And then we also have a 3D print tab that contains all the commands to get you ready to actually print your part. So let's go to the Create tab and let's open the part. Go to the main menu in VisualCAD, pick Open, and go to the Quick Start folder in the install path for Visual3DPRINT. It's shown here. And then open the part called carmodel.vcp. Let's open that. Okay, what you see here on the left in the data tree, you see that we have a lot of mesh objects. If you select them, you'll see they're highlighted on the part. These are individual meshes. You can see down here in the information window we got over 300 meshes, and we have over 134,000 triangles in this collection of meshes. So the first thing we want to do, and this is really the first thing you should do with any mesh that you open or import into Visual3DPRINT, is we're going to do some diagnostics. Let's pick the Repair tab and pick the Diagnose command. Select our meshes, right click, and then the options for the command appear down below here, and we'll pick the Run Checks button. You see that we have over 25,000 open edges. Those all need to be fixed. And you also see that we have, this is a shell, so we don't have a closed volume on the bottom either. All of these have to be fixed before we can 3D print this part. All these other things here, we can live with those for now. Let's close that. Now, to fix these open edges, we're going to use a command called stitch and close. It's going to stitch all the meshes together, and it's going to close this bottom portion of the model. Let's pick stitch and close. Select all the meshes, right click, and let it do its job. So now it's done. You see that we now have one mesh, and it's been closed on the bottom. So we have a complete mesh, and now we have 180,000 facets, triangles in this mesh. Let's do another diagnose to make sure that we're closed. Pick diagnose, pick the mesh, right click, run checks. We see that we have 0 open edges. That's good. That's got to be 0 in order to 3D print your part. These other things, we can live with those for now. Let's close this dialog. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we got 180,000 triangles in this mesh. You can simplify this some to make it a little bit easier to work with and to 3D print. So let's go to the Inspect and Modify tab, pick the Reduce option, select the mesh, right click, and you see that we have a slider that allows you to set the value to reduce the total mesh count by. Set this somewhere below 50%, say, and pick Reduce. So now what you see, we still got one mesh, but now we have 119,000 facet triangles. That makes it a little bit easier to work with, and you're not losing really much. You're not losing any accuracy per se. It's just making the total triangle count that much easier to work with. Okay, so we got our car. It's closed, and let's create our box to make our cavity block. First, we'll go to a 4 viewport layout, and we'll activate the right view, and we'll zoom in a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a box, a mesh to box. So we'll go over to the create command, pick the box command. If you move this command line down a little bit, you'll see the command input wants you to pick the first corner of the box. So let's go over to the right view, and down here in the object snaps, make sure all the snaps are turned off except for the grid snap. We want to snap to the grid in the right view. So we'll zoom in, go to above on the center of the model, pick the first point, then we'll zoom out and go below and to the right of the part and pick our second point. Now, if you move over to the front view, you'll see that it's asking for the length. So we're going to drag this length to completely enclose the part. So pick that point, and we'll reactivate the ISO view. So now you see that we have 2 meshes in the data tree. We have our original car mesh, and we have the box mesh. So now what we want to do is we want to subtract the car model from the cavity block to create our cavity. So let's go ahead to the model tab. We'll pick the subtract command, and you'll see that the command prompt says pick the mesh that you want to subtract from. So we want to pick the box, right click, then pick the mesh to subtract. We want to pick the car, and then right click. Now you see that we have a nice cavity block. Let's turn the grid off, zoom in a little bit. We have a nice cavity block. Let's do another diagnose here just to make sure. Run checks. We got 0 open edges. This is ready to 3D print right now, or you can use it to continue to make additional modifications on the cavity block. Well, this is the end of the first Quick Start Guide, and we hope you enjoyed it. There are 2 others in the series, Quick Start Guide number 1 and number 2. I invite you to watch them as well. We appreciate it. If you need any more help or resources, you can visit us on the web at www.mecsoft.com. Thank you.